Hari Hari. So we're still on chapter 4, text 13. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me, and although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. Obviously, that's Krishna speaking. Today we're going to go over briefly the necessity of Varnashram, just so that we have a clear understanding of why we need Varnashram in relation to our Bhakti Yoga, our devotional life, our spiritual development. We are, unless we are Paramahamsas, Varnashram is absolutely essential to our devotional life. Our devotional life, our spiritual advancement. It's not only just essential to the smooth operation of society at large, it's essential to our devotional development. And that's what's really key. Oftentimes we don't hear the direct connection between Varnashram and our spiritual development. We simply see Varnashram as a necessary way of structuring society so that there is harmonious functioning of society, and from that harmonious space we can then engage in devotional service. That is true, but there is also a connection that is less talked about, which is direct. A direct connection between our advancement in spiritual life and Varnashram. So I'm going to touch on that today. Unless we are Paramahamsas, then Varnashram is necessary. If we are Paramahamsas, then we do not have to even worry about Varnashram. Then Varnashram is actually a hindrance, or can be a hindrance. But for a Paramahamsa, for a non-Paramahamsa, that means we are under the influence and are we're under the influence of Kam, Krodh, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. The Arishad Vargas, right? Lust, anger, greed, illusion, arrogance, and envy. We are under the influence of those 6 things and everything that comes with them, unless we are Paramahamsas. These 6 Arishad Vargas are then an obstacle. We often hear this, not so much anymore, but certainly in the past. I haven't heard much anymore. But we have sometimes, or may have heard, why is it that a devotee or a person who is engaged in Krishna consciousness for 40 or 50 years then fall away from the process of devotional life, of Krishna consciousness? Well, it's very simple. We are Anandamaya, right? Being qualitatively one with Krishna, we are pleasure-seeking. We are Anandamaya Bhyasat. If we're not receiving a taste, or if we're not experiencing Ananda in our sadhana, we're going to give it up. We are driven by the very nature of who we are, Anandamaya, that we're going to seek out pleasure. If we're not experiencing pleasure in our sadhana, we're going to stop engaging in sadhana. It's not hard to understand. And we're going to seek pleasure through the agency of the senses. So it's very simple. The reason why someone ends or gives up their devotional activities because they're not experiencing ruchi, pleasure, a taste from it, along with many other variables. And they are seeking satisfaction through the agency of the senses. That's not a bad thing. Quite the opposite. We are Anandamaya. That is inevitable. That if we're not receiving a taste from our sadhana, we're going to seek it from another source. What is the obstacle to our experiencing ruchi, a taste, in our devotional life, in our sadhana? There are 4 obstacles: Nam, Dam, Seva, and Vaishnav Aparad. The four aparads are the obstacles that prevent us from experiencing ruchi. So we have to eliminate those four aparads. By eliminating those aparads, then we're able to experience ruchi. And by experiencing the ruchi, we then continue on our sadhana and progress onto bhava and prema. But we are not paramahamsas. So we are susceptible to, or we are influenced by, lust, anger, greed, illusion, arrogance, and envy. Everything in our life is influenced by those 6 Arishad Dvargas, enemies of the living entity. And because we are influenced by the Arishad Dvargas, engaging or committing those 4 aparads is inevitable. That's the issue that has to be identified. We're not paramahamsas, which means we are under the influence of the Arishad Dvargas. Being under the influence of the Arishad Dvargas, committing those 4 aparads is inevitable. We're operating under lust, anger, greed, illusion, arrogance, envy. Aparads are inevitable in that environment. Inevitable. The reason why Varnashram is essential is because Varnashram inserts itself in that space between our influence under the Arishad Dvargas and the aparads. It gets between so that our interaction or our committing of Vaishnava aparad, Nam aparad, Seva aparad, Dham aparad is not inevitable. That's what Varnashram does. Because when we are properly situated in Varnashram, in our Varna and in our Ashram, then the impetus, the influence of the Arishad Dvarga is lessened, not eliminated, lessened. It gives us the agency, the space, so that we can catch ourselves before we inevitably or intentionally or ignorantly engage in one of the 4 aparads. That's why Varnashram is essential. It eliminates the inevitability of our committing those aparads based on the fact that we're influenced by the Arishad Dvargas. That's why Varnashram is essential to our devotional life. So it's not just about social harmony. Varnashram is essential for the living entity who is under the control of the Arishad Dvargas, under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature, to eliminate that inevitability of the aparads. Because if we commit aparads, then we are unable to experience ruchi. Ruchi is essential because we are anandamaya. We are by nature pleasure seeking. And if we do not experience ruchi, taste, satisfaction in our devotional life, we're going to come to that in the 10th chapter, right? Machita magata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantas chamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. Beautiful verse. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted in my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. If there's no satisfaction and bliss by engaging in the service of Krishna, by engaging in our sadhana, guess what? We will not engage in that sadhana. We will, because we are Anandamaya, will seek satisfaction elsewhere. The 4 aparads are the obstacles to our experiencing satisfaction. What the system of Varnashram does, it makes sure the conditioned living entity, conditioned by the Arishad Dvargas, is as properly situated in their nature as we get or as we receive from the 3 modes of material nature, as properly situated in that, so that we can at least have that space, that agency minimize, not eradicate, but at least minimize these aparads. And by engaging in Varnasrama, is no guarantee that we will not engage in, we may not commit aparad. A Paramahamsa can commit Vaishnava aparad. We know this. So we're not talking about a guarantee in terms of committing aparad. By the way, just an aside, a Paramahamsa, yes, can commit Vaishnava aparad, for example, but the difference between a Paramahamsa committing Vaishnava aparad and you and I committing Vaishnava aparad is that a Paramahamsa knows how to rectify it. They are not driven by ego that they cannot ask for forgiveness. You and I have a problem asking for forgiveness. That's a key difference. But what Varnashram does is it gives us the space and the agency because we are properly situated. We're not driven, we're not overcome by being pigeonholed, by being a square peg in a round hole. We are actually fairly well situated in material nature, which is important. We are fairly well situated in our Varna and Ashram that we have the space and the agency to be aware of these aparads, be aware of our ability to minimize our committing those aparads, and give us the space and the agency to try to develop the ability to make amends, to correct when we engage in those aparads. So Varnashram is absolutely essential for our devotional life, for our Krishna conscious spiritual development. It is essential. It is not just a social construct for the harmonious functioning of society. It is essential for our individual devotional growth. That's why Varnashram is important. Hari Hari.